In the last few lessons, you've learned how to write your own methods from scratch. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to write a method that, instead of using the void command, actually returns a value back. So all of the methods we've used so far have been void, which means they don't send anything back. Today we're going to focus on what happens when you need a method to actually return something. So the return command is what actually sends a value back to whatever method is calling. Now, the one trick with this is you can only return one value at a time. So here's a quick example. It's a method to return the larger of two integers. So we have two parameters, int a and int b, and the method name is max. So the goal of our method is to go through and return either a or b, whichever one is larger. So again, we're making a decision here. If a is larger than b, we return a. Otherwise, we return b. So if I passed in 7 and 6, 7 is bigger than 6, making our if statement true, and it returns the a. Now, one special thing about a return statement, once Java hits the return, it actually ignores all the code underneath it. It's like a break statement. Basically, at that point, it returns the a, and as far as it's concerned, there's nothing more to be done in max. Now let's look at what happens when a is not greater than b. So let's pass in a 3 and a 7. So 3 and 7, basically that makes the if statement false, and so it skips everything here inside the if statement and then goes to the return b. Now one thing you might be asking is, why don't we need an else? And that again goes back to what the return command does. As soon as Java hits a return command, basically it stops running the code in the method and goes back to the calling function. So if our if statement is true and it hits this first return, it'll never hit the second return down here. Only one of these returns can happen. So here's the code we were just looking at in the slide. We have public static int max, and here we have the same exact thing. If a is greater than b, return a, otherwise return b. So down here in main, I'm asking the user to input two integers, and then we're calling max of x comma y. So whatever value that max returns, down here in main is going to be printed to the screen. So let's compile and run, and we'll type in 12 and 1, and it tells us the largest is 12. If we run it again, 5 and 18, it tells us the largest is 18. Now again, we've talked a lot about this, but one of your goals as the programmer is to write code as correctly as possible. So one of the things you need to do is try to break your code. We haven't really talked about what happens if a and b are equal. So let's try that. So I'm going to type in 2 and 2. Notice here it tells us the largest is 2. What's happening in our if statement is it's testing, is 2 greater than 2, and that's false. So it's not doing this first return, it's actually returning the b down here. It doesn't actually matter in this case since a and b are the same value, but it correctly returns that there is a larger number. Now because max has this word int right here, that's what's telling Java that a value will be sent back to main. Again, most of the methods we've seen so far have this word void. But if I have the void, Java actually can't return a value down here. So notice if I try to compile now, we get a big error message. I can't return a value from a method whose result type is void. So this placeholder, the public static, and then the third piece right here, has to be there. We either have to have a data type or the word void so that Java knows how to handle the method.